Hey ladies, welcome back to my channel. As you can tell by the caption of the video today, we're going to be doing prom nails, so make sure to comment, like, and subscribe, and yeah, let's hop into the tutorial. So I started by pushing my client's cuticles back, and now I'm going in with my cuticle drill bit. It's shaped like a cone, so sometimes I call it my cone shaped drill bit. But anyways, this drill bit is super efficient for getting any of the dead skin out, just exposing that entire nail and really helping for the prep. This is really important, especially for all full sets, fillings, just anything in general, because it really helps expose the entire nail and get all of that cuticle, all of the dead skin, any gunk, anything from under there free, and really helps to get ready for, like I said, the next stage of the prep. You want to make sure that when you're doing your prep, you're doing everything properly, because this is going to be the most important part of the whole entire acrylic process, at least in my opinion. This is what is going to help your retention, help prevent lifting, XYZ. So just keep that in mind. And now I'm going in with my 180 sanding band, and here I'm just running across the entire nail as well as around that cuticle area one more time. And this is just to get rid of any of those natural oils that our nails produce. That is what will prevent the acrylic from properly adhering to the nail. So you just want to be mindful of that. This is a really important step. You don't want to apply any pressure. You don't want to have the drill going at too high of a speed. This is simply just to run over the nail and get rid of those natural oils. So now we have the nail tips on and cut to her desired length. So I'm going to go ahead and blend in the nail tips with the natural nail. And this just helps prevent popping off and lifting. So this is another small yet important step. So you want to make sure that you're doing this as well. And now I'm going to go ahead and go in with my Mia Secret nail prep. This is just a dehydrator. It's another layer of making sure that we're getting rid of those natural oils. It just does exactly what it's called, dehydrator. It really dehydrates the nails. This step and the next step are really important as well. You cannot do a set without these two steps. Like I said, really every step in the prep phase is important, but especially these two. And y'all, don't mind my client's cuticle area. She had a hangnail that she really wanted me to get, and I was telling her, girl, I don't think that we should do this, but she was persistent, and yeah, so she has a little nick there, but it's all good. So now we're gonna go in with the Mia Secret Extra Bond, and this is just a primer. It's another important layer, like I was saying earlier, and this is what helps the acrylic properly adhere to the nail. Now I do 2 layers of this on each hand. That's totally optional, only one is required, but I have noticed that since I've done 2, that it has just helped the overall lasting of my nails. So to each his own, but that's what I recommend. Now I'm going to go ahead and go in with my red gel polish. So this client wanted to do an ombre on one of her fingers. Now this is a hack. If you ever want to do ombre but don't have the color in acrylic but you have it in gel, this is a super easy hack. You just take the color that you want to do the ombre with and you paint just the tip. And I do want to throw this in there. I did do my layer of dehydrator and primer before doing this, but anytime I do any gel ombre, I do another layer of the primer afterwards just to be safe. So after you paint the tip, you do want to let it cure and then top coat it in clear and let it cure again. So the reason I say make sure to add a top coat, some people don't, but I've noticed that when I don't add a top coat, it doesn't blend as well, and I feel like the acrylic just doesn't stay on the nail. Like, it slides a lot. I don't know, maybe that's just me, but I like to do a top coat and I like the outcome way better. So I already did the other hand, as I'm sure you can see in the background, but now I'm just going to go ahead and do this hand. So I'm using Mia Secret Cover Blush or Cover Nude or something like that. If you want to know the exact color, then comment down below and I can get you that. But I really love this for all of my base acrylics, unless I'm doing obviously something with like encapsulation or that requires something different. But just for like a general base acrylic, I love to use this. And then I also have like a custom acrylic that I use, but this is definitely one of my favorites. And for the sake of the rest of the design, this is what I did to match those nails, obviously. So as you can see, I started by placing my first bead where the natural nail and the nail tip meet, and I just lightly feather it down. Where the natural nail and the nail tip meet is very important because that is called the apex of the nail. That is the heart of the nail. You kind of have to think of it like without that nail tip being glued on right there, you wouldn't have a nail tip. So that is the most important part of the nail. A lot of people make the common mistake as beginners to think that they have to make the nail super thick in order for them to last, or if they make the nail super thick or add on a lot of acrylic, that they won't have any breaks or popping off. And that actually does the opposite. When you overload your nail with acrylic, it can be more damaging to the nail overall. If they hit it, it's more likely to break and take the client's natural nail with them. And just overall, it's not required, it's not necessary, it's a waste of time and a waste of product. So I say all this to say that when you're doing I'm saying tutorial because that's what I'm looking at. When you're doing your acrylic, you want to make sure that you have obviously enough acrylic, but not too much. And an important, a easy way to do that is, I feel like when I was a beginner, the thing that helped me the most was starting from the bottom and working my way up to the top. Obviously, you don't want to work with beads that are too small, and you don't want to work with beads that are too large. So you kind of just have to gauge it on your own and figure out what bead size works best for you. But I like to always work my way from bottom to top. That way I know that I'm getting a nice foundation, but also building up that apex. You can tell by looking at your client's nails or hand, whatever, from a side view. What you should see from the side view, you'll have like a slight hump. Now, obviously not something that looks crazy because you don't want too much acrylic on the nail, but you'll see starting from the cuticle down to the free edge, so you will have a slight slope. So it's very obvious to see, but if you're a beginner, like I said, that is just an easy way to start. And once you get a little bit more experienced and comfortable with using acrylic overall, I started to place my first bead where the natural nail and the nail tip meet, so right at the apex, and then I just feathered it down and worked my way up from there. And that way you can kind of gauge if you need to add more. But I always say it's better to work little by little. That way, if you need to add more, you can, rather than have too much or not enough. So definitely just make sure that you're paying attention and looking at your client's nails from different angles to see if and where you need to add any more acrylic. And one thing I will say, usually with like medium long, even sometimes long all the way to short, is when I use this method. If I'm using, or if I'm doing like extra long or anything longer than long, pretty much, I do just start at the bottom overall. And some people just use one bead regardless of the size. Some people use the same technique. Everybody is different, so definitely do what works for you, because what works for you might not work for you. So you just kind of have to, as a nail tech, you have to kind of figure out what works best for you and just do that. I do these videos just to help people and give people another view or another way of doing things. It doesn't mean that I'm the nail god or what I say is absolutely right, but take it with a grain of salt and just kind of, add your own little twist to it and do what is comfortable for you. As long as your client is leaving happy and with good nails, that is all that matters. So definitely keep that in mind. Don't get discouraged if you see somebody do one thing and it doesn't work for you, because that was my problem. When I first started, I used to watch tutorials all day long, every day, from many different people. And sometimes I would literally have the video right in front of me and be doing exactly what they're doing, and it just wouldn't work out for me. So when I started to kind of take what they were saying and do it in a way that was comfortable for me, now I'm here 5 years later. And yeah, so definitely just keep that in mind. But I do want to also mention, once you get to the cuticle area, this is a big mistake as a beginner as well. You do not want to place your cuticle bead right on the cuticle. I like to say to place it a little bit beneath, because when you do feather the acrylic down, it does slide up just slightly. So when you place it right underneath the cuticle, after feathering it, it should slide up right to where you need it to be. And if not, you can add a little bit more and repeat the steps. But I say don't place it on the cuticle, because that will cause flooding. You do not want any acrylic on your client's cuticle, on their skin, anything of that sort. So definitely just keep that in mind. And if that does happen, don't panic. It is an easy fix, especially if you catch it right away. As you can see, what I'm doing on each and every one of my clients' fingers, regardless if there's acrylic on there or not, I do just take the extra time to wipe around my client's cuticle area. And I just feel like that helps a lot. I'd rather be safe than sorry, to make sure that it is totally free of any acrylic. and that will overall help prevent lifting. So definitely just keep that in mind. Pay attention to that. It is easier to fix while the acrylic is wet, or like right after it happens, rather than wait. Then you get to the point where you're trying to file it. And the cuticle area is a very soft, delicate area. So anything you do up there will be kind of sensitive. So definitely just try to catch it when you can. Another thing you see I'm doing is making sure to wipe the sides of the nails after applying the acrylic, as well as the free edge. And if you're wondering why I do that, it is because I like to keep the shape as much as I can. It cuts down a lot of time. Like, I apply acrylic like I don't own a hand file, and I just have realized that ever since I started to do that, it cuts down so much time. In the end, when I have to file and use my e-file, I literally can do both hands and be done within like 10 minutes. When I used to do that, it used to be 30 minutes overall, sometimes a little bit longer. It would just take so long. So don't force it, but definitely give it a try and just keep that shape. It will definitely help. I feel like the cleaner and the neater you work overall from start to finish, the more time you save. I think when I first started, I used to take about 2, sometimes 3 hours on a set, especially a set like this that included a lot of detail, a lot of bling, etc. I took at least minimum 2 hours 15 minutes, 2 hours 30 minutes, sometimes, like I said, even 3. Like, I was constantly having to push clients back and reschedule people, or just do basic designs, which wasn't always what my client wanted. But now I can do a full set, especially something like this, in about an hour and a half, which is really good because this is really detailed and it includes a lot. And everybody is different, so don't, like I said earlier, don't take that and, you know, if you take longer, think that you're doing something wrong. Everybody works at a different pace, but you'll get there. I just like to throw in little tips that have helped me save time in case you want to try them as well. And so now that I have this nail built up, I do again wipe around my client's cuticle area, making sure it's nice and free of any acrylics. You want the acrylic to be nice and flush with the client's cuticle area. So like I said, working neat really will save you a lot of time and just overall help the quality of your nail. And so moving on to the ombre nail, this is nothing different from regular application besides where we're placing the beads. So I usually use about 2 beads. I start by placing the first bead right above where the polish ends, and I just go ahead and lightly feather it down. And the reason I say lightly is because if you work too heavy-handed, obviously with any acrylic application, it'll get stuck in your brush. You're wiping off a lot of your product, XYZ. So that's why I am, being very adamant on the feathering. You want to do that regardless, but especially when you're doing the ombre, that way you can give yourself some room to blend the acrylic. When I first did this, I just applied 1 big bead thinking I was going to ombre it, and by the time I got done, smoothing it down, y'all, the whole ombre was covered. It was a mess. I felt bad. So just keep that in mind. And I like to work with, when I do that first bead, I do work a little bit smaller. That way I don't run into the problem of having too much acrylic to the point when I do feather it down, it's not really ombre. So I work really small with that first bead, and then I do go in with the second bead near the cuticle area and just feather that down as well. So once that is nice and ombre, I do, with any ombre nail, when I do use the gel polish, I like to use a clear end cap, just a thin little layer. And this is to not only protect the ombre, but also protect that polish. Obviously, it only has a top coat, so when we do go to use our hand file and our e-file, it'll come right off if we're not careful. So that thin layer of clear acrylic definitely will help prevent that from happening and just kind of act like a barrier. You don't need too much, because with that nude acrylic, we already built up our apex, and the clear will add enough to help protect the cuticle area and the ombre overall, but it'll be enough as well to protect that ombre towards the bottom, that gel polish. And if you feel like you need to add more, definitely add more. Sometimes I have to go in with another bead for the bottom half of the nail, and it really just depends. So do what works for you. And then for the thumb, I did the same process as I did on the rest of the nails. I just applied my beads starting at the cuticle, or not the cuticle area. I applied my beads starting where the natural nail and the nail tip meet. I work my way up, do my cuticle bead, make sure I'm wiping around the client's skin, keeping that shape, everything that needs to be done. So I'm gonna let y'all finish watching that, and I'll hop back in when I get to the next part. Okay, so now that we have the acrylic nice and done, I'm gonna go ahead and go in with my file, and I do use a 80 grit, I want to say, or maybe it's 100. But either way, it is very, very sharp. So as you can see, I'm making sure to pull my client's skin back, because one wrong file, one wrong groove, and this will slice her skin. So it's very uncomfortable. You just want to make sure that you're really paying attention to that. Pull her skin back. Obviously not to the point where it's uncomfortable, but definitely to where you're not, like I said, filing their nail. So since this is square, I just take my file and I make sure that it stays flat up against the side of the nail, and I just file straight up and down. And I do the same thing with the free edge. Make sure that you are straight to your client, because a mistake I used to make as a beginner, I thought, oh, the file is straight, so that means the nails are straight, but my body would be disangled from my client's body, And you would think that that doesn't matter, but in all reality it does, because your straight is no longer straight to them. So make sure that you are just, face to face with your client and straight to straight with them. That way when you're filing, it is genuinely straight. And there's nothing really to it when it comes to square. Just filing in general, but square is definitely easy. You normally just follow the shape of your nail, making sure to keep that file straight up against the nail, and that is what will help keep it straight, not angle it, not give it a curve, whatever. It'll make sure that it's nice and straight. As you can see, I'm also filing the undersides of the nail, and that just helps because, like I said earlier, when I do apply my acrylic, I like to press up against the sides and the free edge, which sometimes can cause acrylic to kind of sneak underneath. So doing that will definitely make sure that the undersides are nice and clean, nice and cut. You don't want to have any, bumps or lumps anywhere on the nail, but especially not on the undersides, because it just takes away from the quality overall. And filing the free edge is super easy. I do want to give a big tip though, especially when you're doing coffin or like almond or even stiletto. You don't really have to worry about it when it's square. But I just feel like as a beginner in general, if you are a beginner with filing, make sure that you're being mindful when you're filing the sides, because I used to go so hard on one side, and then I would look at it and be like, oh, now I have to do that to the other side. And by the time it was done, the shape would not be what we wanted it to be, or I would barely have any nail left because I just filed most of it off. So kind of just bounce back and forth from side to side, and make sure that you're paying attention and being mindful of how much you're filing. And then if you see, I do like to take my file and file over top of the nail. I don't know really the logic behind that. I just feel like ever since I've started doing that and buffing it out with the file and the e-file, that it just helps apply my polish and my top coat, whatever I'm putting on the nail afterwards, just so much smoother, so much easier. It looks so much nicer. So I don't know, that's totally optional, but I like to do it. And you just want to be careful because as you're doing it back and forth, it can nick your client. And I don't do it around the cuticle area, because regardless of if I do this or not, I have to still seal the cuticle with my e-file. So I just don't even go around the cuticle area. Like I said, it's sensitive, and don't nobody want to risk cutting their client's cuticle back and forth really quickly with the hand file. So we'll just take care of that when we get to the e-file. And I'm doing the same thing here. Just because there's ombre on this nail doesn't change anything, but you do just want to be mindful again that you're not filing too much off, or filing it to the point that you don't filed the nail all the way down to the ombre. You still want it to have enough of that ombre effect. So anytime you're doing something like this, just be careful not to file too hard to where you're causing the polish to chip or taking some of that polish off, or filing too much to where now you done filed it down and you can't even really tell that it's supposed to be ombre. So again, here I'm flipping my client's hand, looking at it from different angles. Like I told y'all, I do that with almost every step to really ensure that it's straight and even and just nice and clean. So I'm gonna do the same thing here with the thumb, and then I'm gonna get back into it with the next step. Okay, now that we haven't filed, I'm going to go ahead and go in with my e-file. So I do like to always start by filing the moon of the nail, which is just basically the crease that's right under the free edge. And I like to do that just because, again, me pressing up against the free edge when I'm applying my acrylic can sometimes get acrylic underneath there. So I try to catch that when I'm doing the actual application, but sometimes it doesn't always work that way. So I just like to go back in with this sanding band just to make sure that it's nice and crisp underneath there. Like I said, anything that you can do to add quality to your nail, definitely do it, because your client will be able to tell, like it doesn't matter. So, and as you can see, like since I already filed the nail with the hand file, I do kind of just run over it again with my e-file to make sure that it's nice and smooth, nice and flat. But overall, the main goal here is to really seal the cuticle area. That is the whole point and the main goal. If you're not somebody that uses your hand file, then yes, you do need to make sure that you're paying attention to the whole nail as well. I still like to go over it just to, be safe, and ensure that it's all nice and even, no lumps, no bumps, nice and smooth. But again, the main part here is the cuticle area. So you do want to make sure that you are just going from side to side with the cuticle, making sure that it's nice and flush. You don't want it to be super thick. Obviously, you don't want to take any acrylic off. Overall, the goal here is not to take off any acrylic unless you need to, and that's a different story. But if you keep your application nice and neat, you don't really have to worry about that, which again is a big time saver. You're not having to spend time, really taking off acrylic or fix anything. You're just ensuring that the cuticle area is nice and flush and that there's no lumps or bumps. So it really does cut down a lot of time because everything is nice and clean overall. So, and I do want to just mention, if you're not aware, that sealing the cuticle just helps with prevent lifting. So obviously, as your nail grows out, if the acrylic is too thick or it's not where it needs to be, or anything like that, when it grows out, you will just get lifting. So filing off any excess and making sure that it's nice and tucked into the nail will help when it does start to grow out. It's where it needs to be. So. And this is the last step before we get into any nail art. This is probably the easiest step of the whole tutorial. So I'm just taking my buffer and buffing the entire nail, cuticle area included. So you want to make sure you're doing top to bottom, left to right, really buffing the entire nail. And then I do like to run it across the undersides of the nail too, just because sometimes it can be a little sharp or a little rigid. So I feel like a little swipe or two underneath the undersides of the nails just sometimes help, dull it down just enough and make sure it's just smooth under there. I don't film this part, but after buffing my client's nails, I do apply cuticle oil to the entire cuticle area as well as the under skin, like the skin that's right underneath the nail. And that just really helps loosen up any debris, any dust, anything. And I do have her wash them. I use antibacterial soap. That's a whole different story. If you want to know about that, then you can comment and I'll kind of explain my reasoning behind that. But just non-scented soap, well, if it's antibacterial, it's fine, but like I said, it's a whole nother story. So I just like to have them wash with soap and then dry, and then when they sit back down, I do kind of run over each nail with a lint-free wipe with some acetone, just making sure that it's free of any lint, any oils, anything that could be left over from the nail. So yeah, if you're wondering how we go from dusty to clean, that's what I do. Everybody does it differently. So for every nail, we are going to go ahead and top coat it first, because every design that we're doing does require it to be top coated. So for, I think the pinky and the ring and the thumb, if I'm not mistaken, I think are going to be glitter French tips. So since we're doing the raw glitter, obviously we want the nail to already be top coated. Everybody does this differently. Some people will do the glitter first and then top coat just the nail that's showing, but I don't do mine that way, and that's just because I feel like it's more clean and cut when it's already top coated first. That way, when you go to top coat it, if you do the glitter first. I don't like when the top coat kind of like seeps and gets into the glitter, and then you got certain parts of the glitter that looks like dark because it's wet from the, yeah, too much. This is how I like to do it, to each his own. But and then the rest of the design, obviously you'll see as we get through the tutorial, but it does require the nails to be top coated already. At least that's how I like to do it when I'm doing the designs that we're going to be getting into. So I go ahead and top coat it, and I wipe the sides, like the undersides, to make sure there's no excess polish, and then I let them cure for 60 seconds. So we're going to start off with some bling. This is going to be a 3D flower finger, so I do just go ahead and apply the bling first. So I'm using Macart rhinestone glue. I feel like this is very, very good. I do recommend it for anybody that is trying to find a good rhinestone glue. I don't have any problems with it. It is very thick, so you do kind of have to be mindful. Your jewels will slide sometimes, but as long as you're, paying attention, then it works really, really well. And so, like I said, this is going to be kind of like a half flower type of thing, 3D flower that we're going to be doing. So we want to have it like the center is coming from the jewels. So her color is red, obviously, so we're just going to place the big jewel and then kind of go around it with some smaller ones and cure. And this rhinestone glue does cure ASAP, y'all, so just be mindful. As soon as it goes under that light, it's going to be dry. So make sure that you're checking the placement of your jewels and making sure that they are right where you want them to be before curing. So this nail is just going to be a full bling nail. So it's going to be, obviously, as you can see, we're going to have bling everywhere that I'm applying the gel. There's no really pattern to this. She just was really adamant about having a butterfly, so I kind of just mixed in some red gems with some regular and did like a cute little pattern. But like I said, the main piece here was the butterfly gem, which you'll see me post, well, not post, you'll see me apply. So I do want to throw in, you'll see once I place the butterfly, it has like spaces in between the wings. So one thing that I like to do when I'm doing bigger jewels, I top coat all the gems anyways, just to ensure like that shine stays, but I also like to put a nice blob. Obviously it depends on the jewel and like where I'm placing it, but like I said, the butterfly gem has some holes like in the wings, so I do like to place a big blob of top coat in that, just so it can kind of dry and it's not noticeable. You can't really see the top coat in the wings, but it just helps really hold onto it because all of that wing space is filled with top coat, and it just kind of is another protectant of holding it onto the nail. So you'll see me do that if you're wondering. And then of course, like I said, it dries as soon as you put the nail under, and this rhinestone glue is kind of thick, so your stones will slide, but don't worry. Just kind of work nail by nail if that's what's easier for you, because that's what I do. And just make sure that the placement of them is exactly where you want it to be before they dry. Alright, so as you can see, that came out super cute. So we're done with the pointer finger. It's all blinged out, and then we are going to go ahead and work with the 3D flower, and we'll do the glitter French tips last. I like to say that last just because sometimes it gets a little messy, so I'd rather just make sure that everything else is done. So here we're doing kind of like, I don't even know what to call this type of flower, but the top and the bottom are going to be more so pointed, and then the side, like the extra space, is going to be like regular flower petals. So for here, you do want to work with a smaller, drier bead. That is a big tip when doing the 3D flowers. You want your bead obviously not to be dry as possible, but you do not want it to be wet really at all. You want it to be more so on the drier side, just because once you place it, it is hard to work with when it starts to run all over the place. So when it's already mostly dry, you can go ahead and kind of form it more and not have to worry about keep going over and over and over. So I just kind of take this nail art brush, and as you can see, it's pointed on the end. So I kind of, when I apply the bead, just kind of press down and drag towards the tip just very lightly to give that indented flower look. And then, like I said, the top and the bottom, I don't really know what to call this flower, but the petals on the top and the bottom need to be pointed at the end. So once I have it placed where I want and have it indented as much as I want, I kind of just take my brush and pinch the ends in. That kind of sounds complicated. You know, some things you just have to see rather than hear. So you'll see me do it here. This is where I'm just kind of pressing down and dragging out to create that flower look. And then I'm just going to dry my brush off completely and go ahead and kind of start at the sides of the end of the petal and just pinch it in like so. I wish I could explain that better, but y'all see what I mean. It's actually really easy, y'all. I used to be so intimidated by 3D flowers. It literally took me into like my 3rd and a half, almost 4th year to really start doing 3D flowers. I tried it, they look terrible, but you just have to keep going, because I would never have learned how to do them if I never practiced. So that's all it takes, is some practice and just patience. I think the biggest thing is making sure to master your acrylic to monomer ratio. Once you get that down, it's really just the matter of being patient and forming it how you want. So as you can see, both of the first petals are nice and pointed and are giving that flower effect. So now I'm going to go ahead and we're going to put 3 regular flower petals in the empty space. Y'all see me waving my hand? That's me trying to dry that bead out, because I picked it up and I dried it out at least, you know, more as much as I thought I could, but it wasn't really drying as quick as I wanted it to. So I was just waving it a little bit. But okay, so now I have it placed, and as you can see, my brush was still a little bit more wet than what I wanted. So I did dry it off on the paper towel. Because the monomer that was left in the bead was enough to work with. And then I simply just place it, and same thing, you want to just carefully with the tip of your brush kind of press in to give it that nice indentation, to give it like that 3D flower look. So yeah, and sometimes you do have to go back over like your other ones while they're still a little wet. As you can see, I just did right here. It's still a little wet, so I just went in and kind of indented it a little bit more. But usually you don't have to do that. But if you do, don't panic. Like, it's okay. It's just, you know, touching up that little, just the acrylic kind of like marbleizing again. So sometimes you have to do that, but it's no big deal. It's an easy fix. And as long as you catch it while it's still wet, then you're golden. I'm going to do the same thing here. So as y'all can see, it formed a nice 3D flower. Yeah, I really love this set. And y'all, I don't know what it is about this client set. I love all my sets, but this client specifically, she's come to me 3 times. She literally lives an hour away, so I don't get to do her nails that much, but she comes to me when she has big events, obviously. And I actually did a tutorial on her nails before, and it was like French tip butterfly vibe. It's on my channel. I think it has like 10k views or 7k, I don't know, y'all, but it's crazy. I think it's my most viewed video, and y'all loved it and I loved it. Like, I don't know what it is about her sets, but I just love her tutorials, her set in general. Everything comes out literally 10 out of 10 every time. Here I am just making sure that the flowers match. I mean, if they didn't, I was gonna have a. Ooh, I'm glad that they did. Let's just say that. But look how good it turned out, y'all. It's so cute. And you don't have to let that cure. You just kind of let it air dry, just like regular acrylic. It doesn't have to be top coated or anything. So we're done with that. And we're going to go ahead and move on to the last step, which is the glitter French tip. So this is super easy, y'all. All you're going to do is do your French tip. And once you have it Frenched to the gods, you're going to pour some glitter over top. And that's pretty much it. To do my French tips, I have the same technique, unless the only thing that really changes it is when I'm doing like short nails. But other than that, it's the same technique. I like to start by just outlining the sides, and then whichever side I choose, I just kind of go ahead and start that little swoop. I connect it on the other side, and I just clean up the French. I clean up that U, make sure that's nice and even, and just fill in the rest. French tips was another thing that I used to be very scared of. Anytime somebody would book French tips, I used to try to convince them to get something different. And I've like had my trial and error with French tips. I started off by trying to draw them. It never worked. Then I tried to do the acrylic French tips, and y'all, that took so long. Why I would try to do that as a beginner, I don't know. I know how to do it now, thankfully, but it took so long, almost like 3.5 hours when I would do it that way. So I definitely don't recommend until you get experience, but you do need to try it, because trying is how you learn, y'all. Don't be scared. Nothing I know now I would have learned if I did not practice. It doesn't matter who teaches you or what you watch or what you do. If you're not trying it yourself, then you're never going to learn how to really master it. So, and it's crazy because a lot of the times, 9 times out of 10, most of the stuff is actually easy once you learn how to do it. So I don't want to say easy, but it's not as hard as we thought. So yeah. But anyways, I'm just doing that on the same thing on the middle finger. Now I do come back for the thumb. I don't know why, but I just feel like I just wanted to go ahead and do these 2 fingers first. I guess that's just what I was feeling that day. So you're just going to pour the glitter over top while the polish is still wet. That is the number one thing, while it's still wet. Don't cure it, because once the polish is dry, it ain't sticking. Now, I do want to say this. If you do ever happen to make that mistake and you accidentally cure it first, just go back over and outline the French again. It's that simple. You don't have to file it off. You don't have to do anything extra. Just go back over and trace the French and fill it in with polish. And obviously make sure that's all covered, but it's an easy fix, so don't panic. But once you pour the glitter on, I do like to tap the fingers and kind of like dust off the excess, and then you let it cure. So you'll see that after we let it cure, I take like my little scrub brush, if that's what you want to call it, and yeah, we'll get to that. But I do want to mention, as you can see, I'm still wiping the undersides of the nail, because since this is gel polish, it is thick and it will kind of start to slop over to the sides, and obviously the glitter is going to go anywhere that there is polish, so you still want to make sure that you're keeping that nice square shape. So I do it once before applying the glitter, and then again after. I just kind of carefully, because you don't want to take off any glitter, carefully kind of just regain that shape. I do like to cure them for 60 seconds, and I didn't show it dusting off here, but I'm going to show that right after we do this though. Okay, y'all, so actually that is totally my bad. I guess I didn't show it, but you can use your duster, like your little dust, what you use to dust off the dust. I don't know why I'm getting tongue tied, but you can use that, or like I said, I have like this little, what you use when your clients like scrub underneath their nails. Yeah, you can use that and just take off any excess, and everything that is not on polish will come off. So this is the finished result, and they are so cute, y'all. All my peoples loved them when I uploaded them to my social media, and she of course loved them. She said that I'm worth the hour drive anytime. So I am really, really happy with how these came out, and they're giving prom for sure, don't y'all think? Comment down below if you like these and if you enjoyed the tutorial. And yeah, if you made it this far to the end, thank you for watching, and I love y'all. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.